Welcome to my channel, everyone, and in this video we're going to talk about a trade that we took in my Discord chat room on the S&P 500, which was based off of reading the time and sales, which is a very powerful tool if you use it in the proper context and you understand how to read it. In this video we're also going to go over a couple other plays that I've taken this week along with my thought process behind the trades. So if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And if you want a very good trading resource, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I post daily trading recaps along with very good trading tips and tricks. The link to my Instagram will be in the description below. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. To get some context, let's go over the pre-market plan. Now, I had two different scenarios playing out. For me, my supply and demand imbalances are my advertisers to price. They tell me where I want to be active in the market. And then price and the generated information that the market gives me and its context tells me when I want to actually pull the trigger and when I want to actually be in the trade. So the two scenarios both had to do with the 3836 and 3845 supply zone. If we could break above the wedge that we had, which I'll show you right here, we were consistently making lower highs, but also making higher lows. So this was getting super tight, especially with the consolidation we saw in the overnight session. So a break above that wedge, we had buyers buying right inside of supply, which is a recipe for reversal. If sellers are responsive to price, we could sell off. But if we broke above the wedge and buyers are very strong, outweighing supply, if we could hold above the 3836 area, we can look to take the market long for another rally. So going into my TOS here, we have the 3836 supply zone, which we can see from this pink box here. Now, a supply area basically tells me where there are strong sellers once before based off of previous price action. As you can see, we rejected this supply zone not only once, but we also rejected it, twice. So every time we hit this zone, sellers were very responsive, and it wasn't until today where we got above this trend line, as we can see from this white line, and we were trading, holding value, and finding buyers were interested inside supply for the first time that we saw after 3 other tests. So now I have my area where I'm looking to enter the market. Now I have to have a little confirmation to tell me when to actually enter and when it's the right time with proper risk. So no one knows what the market's going to do next. That's why it's important for you to have a plan and for you to actually know the areas that you're looking to be present at. And that's going to tell you when you should be a spectator and not be actually, entering trades. So inside of the supply zone, if I zoom in here, you're not going to see from a candlestick chart, but this is where reading the tape and understanding the auction process, because the market is just a really big tug of war battle between buyers and sellers. Which ones are getting rewarded? Which ones are underwater? Which ones are going to be happy when the stock moves in the direction, etc. This all comes through market context. So the first sign of life we saw on the S&P 500 was at 9:49 Eastern, where we saw very strong orders coming through above the ask on the level on the time and sales. So what the time and sales shows me is completed transactions, and we saw prices coming through which were above the ask, meaning they were very aggressively wiping away all the passive sellers. In fact, they were so aggressive that they were sweeping all of the inside offers. So again, this is not something you're going to see from a chart. This is something you're going to see from the time and sales if I maximize this right here. So at 9:49, we saw our first signs, and that was right above here when we're at this area here. So this was then when price was at 3839, 3840, and 3838. So all in that area right there. And that is right above our 3836 supply zone. So what that's telling me is sellers are not very strong and buyers are winning this battle, even though it really does not look like that on a candlestick chart at the time we saw something that looked like this. So then a couple of minutes later on the time and sales, we saw very strong sell orders by aggressive sellers being absorbed by passive buyers who were sitting on the bid. And this was something I haven't seen in a while. It was a 696 lot order. Now on TOS, the data is not very reliable compared to other platforms and other brokers with other data feeds. but we saw a 696 order at 383 and a half being hit on the bid. So that's telling me aggressive sellers are selling to passive buyers at 3838 and a half. This was at 10:09. So if I fast forward the candles again, this was over here. So now price is still coming up, but we had another sign of buyers being absorbed, or sellers being absorbed by buyers, because now we have a wall at 3838 and sellers cannot take us down. Buyers were leveraging in their position for another leg higher. We had two very strong convincing signs on the tape, and then this thing pretty much rallied the whole day. If you were focusing on higher time frames, again, we did break above, we sold off. You have a scalping mentality, you could have a day trading mentality, but the whole idea here is being able to read the context. We're inside supply, but because we saw a very aggressive buying, number one, absorbing, and buying hitting the ask above the offer itself, told me two different reasons to be long on the market, two reasons to avoid the short side. And this thing rallied pretty much all day. Lower volume, but it rallied pretty much all day. We did break above that wedge. So again, that is a third confirmation right there to be looking to the long side and taking this trade. When everything starts aligning, that's when you know to go in with a greater size. That's when you know to be an active participant in the market. And that's when you know to take the trade. This thing rallied and hit all-time highs, closed very strong yesterday. Now let's say those aggressive sellers at 383 and a half hit the passive buyers, but price, if we saw the reaction was coming down and those buyers now were underwater, that might not have been absorption, and that could have been really an aggressive order, removing liquidity from the market, and we could have seen price coming down. But what really validated those buyers absorbing those sell orders was price was continuing up. We were making higher lows, and the whole overall trend was up, and there was no reason to fight it. That's where using this in context comes, because yes, we did see buyers absorbing those orders, but eventually, 5-10 minutes later, if price came below, let's say 3835 or, below 3830, those buyers would now be underwater, and I really wouldn't care for this to the long side. But it was the fact that buyers defended it. They were continuing to put pressure on all those sellers and all those bears, which made this a very attractable long trade. WKHS is a stock I normally don't trade, but a member brought it to my attention during the webinar last week that we had. We were forming a nice ascending triangle. We were making a double top, but we were also making higher lows as well. So this was getting tighter and tighter. And it wasn't until yesterday, on Thursday, February 4th, that we had very strong convincing buying volume. And I was pretty interested to the long side for a couple of reasons. So I put this in the intraday commentary tab of where I post my thought process, my commentary, and the setups that I'm seeing form in real time. So it was about to test that high. We were forming new demand over the $40 level, and we had very strong buying volume, as we could see, down here from buying the volume. So we came up to $40 and we started pulling back. We in fact actually broke above 40 by, 5-6 cents. And this is why I'm against buying rallies or buying breakouts, because if you don't have risk tolerance, this thing came down about $1. A lot of people would have got stopped out, but in fact, this was just forming and creating new demand during that pullback. So we were forming new demand at the $40 level. VWAP was pointing up, volume was pretty strong, and we were very close to tagging, the high that we had from the previous double top. It was right around the $40 level. So as soon as I saw volume kind of stalling out, the price was moving up, and I got long speculating that demand was going to form around the $40 level. And we didn't get confirmation, but I was in prior to confirmation. That's why I only had a starter position for this trade. Then we got that volume, and that volume above the high validated that this was actually demand. We did break the high, and that's exactly where I sold half of my position. I always like selling into strength, because when everybody's buying, I want to be a seller to those buyers. If there's not enough buying pressure, we're going to stall out here and we're going to move down. I always like playing defensive. I always like playing a little conservative, taking profits when I have it, and taking them into strength. You could never go wrong being defensive and trading and taking profits off the table. So we started coming up more. My position was good. And as soon as we came to the $42 level and price was stalling out, could not move higher, I sold the rest of my position. Couple of things that I wish I could, or I'm gonna use and I put in my journal to improve on, is to maybe keep a little more contracts. I had a little more room out of this bone. There was a little more juice to squeeze. As we did pull back, VWAP was still aiming up, and look what happened. We pulled back right into that demand that formed over here. And on top of that, we also bounced at VWAP, which proved to be strong earlier in the day. So two confirmations there. Should have never really stopped out of my position when we were coming down. I, in fact, maybe should have even looked to add to my position on this weakness right here. As we did come up, we did break a high a day, and we did start stalling out at $43. Today really did nothing besides chop. When there's chop like this, I completely avoid the stock, completely avoid trading. Even though we're inside of demand, I don't care. You're going to get faked out. You're going to lose on positions if you try to hop the gun and you try to enter positions that are extremely choppy. Tesla had demand at 839. We opened up, we sold off, we hit it to the T, and then we came back up, then sold off again to test the zone to pick up more buy orders. 839 bounced again pretty perfectly, double bottomed. It wasn't until around 11:15 where volume really started coming in, and this thing had a crazy rally from 839 to about 864. The 870 calls for today's expiration, just to illustrate the power of options. If we did play a lotto call position at demand, the low was around 25 cents to a high of around $4.60. So about a 1600% return. So let's just say we bought 10 contracts at $250. We could have sold those 10 contracts about 2 hours later, a little less, for $4,600. So that's a very good return. If let's just say you did buy a lotto, it's a gamble position, but it just goes to show you the power of options same day, along with supply and demand. Just for fun, and I think this is hilarious, Zoom stock ZM made a low of 387 to a high of $420. That is an 8% increase on the stock. The 420 strike calls for today's expiration made a low of 5 cents to a high of $3.12. That is a 6,140% return. Theoretically, if you bought from low to high, obviously never going to happen, but I think this is funny. $5 would have made you $312, and $500 put into it would have made you $31,200. So pretty crazy, just showing the power of lottos, same day expirations. You can lose it just as fast. These things do not happen often. They're a complete gamble, but I find it pretty funny just to illustrate the power of these types of options. Now that's going to wrap up this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to smash that like button. If you learned stuff from my channel and my content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you want to learn more, follow me on Instagram, and be sure to check out my website for my courses. I'll talk to you all at the next video. Peace.